coming. We will call the meeting to order. Ms. Thompson, would you lead us in the pledge, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you so much. We are going to start with our student board members report. Ms. Boland?
Good afternoon. I want to thank everyone for giving me and Aiken this wonderful opportunity to serve as the MNPS student board member for the school year of 2012 to 2013. Thank you for listening to my board reports, showing interest, and simply returning smiles to me. Once again, Aiken and I are truly honored to have been chosen to serve as the MNPS student board member this year. And thank you.
And thank you very much, Ms. Bowling. And if you would please join me in giving Ms. Bowling a very big hand of applause. We appreciate your service in representing our students. Thank you very much. We will move to Ms. Thompson, memoriam.
Yes, this evening we have one memorial that we want to address. Teresa F. Duff died April 7th, 2013. Ms. Duff was a native of Nashville and graduated from Whites Creek High School in 1981. She also was a graduate of Nashville Medical College, where she studied as an assistant nurse. Ms. Duff began her career with MNPS in the transportation as a school bus driver in August of 1986, and she spent most of her 26-plus years providing bus service to families in the Stratford cluster. Ms. Duff was known for her sweet smile and her willingness to help others. She will be sadly missed by her supervisors, peers, and students whose lives she touched. We have a moment of silence, please. Thank you.
Thank you. We will move ahead to announcements. Ms. Froeg, we'll start with you this evening.
I just want to congratulate Ms. Connie Gwynn of H.T. Hill Middle School for being named Principal of the Year, and congratulate her on all the great work she's doing out in my district.
Thank you. Mr. Hayes.
No announcements, but just an early congratulations to all of our graduates who will be walking down the aisle next week. Some of you who are watching tonight will see a lot of us for what's a pretty exciting time for both for us and for our students. So I'm excited for a couple of graduations at least this weekend for me personally.
Thank you. Ms. Shepard?
I have a couple. I would like to say congratulations to all the award winners at the Academies of Nashville award banquet last Monday night. I had the pleasure of sitting with the faculty and staff from McGavock High School, and they were fortunate enough to take home 6 awards that night. And I want to let a special band director know that he will be truly missed. Mr. Jeff Beckman announced at the McGavock Band Banquet last Saturday evening that he will be retiring at the end of this month. He has a long history with McGavock High School. He walked through the doors at the age of 14 as a student at McGavock High School. He graduated from McGavock and went on to study at Tennessee Tech, returned as a percussion instructor, and then stayed on as the director. He's been there for 27 years. He will be missed, but I know that he won't be a stranger because I know how much this means to him. He said on Saturday night, this was not his job, this was his life, and that's how he truly was as a band director. I would like to say a huge thank you to the Chamber, for Donaldson Hermitage Chamber of Commerce for their wonderful Education Day banquet that was held last Thursday. They honored the teachers and students of the year for all the schools in the McGavock cluster. It was a very wonderful event, and I had a lot of positive feedback from the parents of the students that were there. They said they thought it would be a nice event, but it truly exceeded their expectations, so that was truly an honor to be involved with that. And this coming Friday will be our last day activities at McGavock High School, where several members of the community, we usually have between 70 and 90 people, adults there, dressed in our business attire, telling the students goodbye and have a great summer. We will be meeting at 6:15 a.m., which I know is a tad early. It's Dr. Register's favorite time of the day. But the rewards are many for being there, and the children, the students, really appreciate our being there. So that being said, I'll echo some of Mr. Hayes' comments. I'll be at the McGavock graduation this coming Sunday at 2, and then the Academy at Opry Mills on the 22nd, and then several others in between. So that concludes my announcements.
Thank you. Ms. Kim, Ms. Spearing.
Yes. I participated in the Hunters Lane Senior Day Awards this past week, and the awards ranged from $30,000 to $71,000, and the total for the day is approximated at $450,000. Congratulations to Vicki Mistry, who is a junior at Hunters Lane, and she has just been offered a prestigious scholarship at Princeton University. Also, Harvard is courting her to try to get her to submit an application there as well. As a previous teacher, I know that the month of May is very difficult. It's one of the hardest months of the year, and I want to congratulate teachers and students on your completion of this year and the many and varied tests that you have administered over these past 3 weeks. I had the opportunity to serve as an invigorator, which is a proctor, of the International Baccalaureate exams at Hillsborough last week. And I just want to say that our family has had 4 years at Hillsborough High School, where my son will graduate, my grandson will graduate in 4 days. And Michael's been part of the baccalaureate program, and I want to thank Dr. Terry Schrader and Dr. Greg Hammond and all the IB teachers for this wonderful experience. I also had the opportunity to speak at 50 Forward and recognize many FLIP volunteers who come to our schools weekly and support our students in reading and math. I also attended the Academies of Nashville, which awarded 15 Academy Awards known as Jessies at their recent banquet. And there were over 300 Metro School educators and business partners attending. And I want to thank all the staff that was involved in that, as well as the business partners. We now have over 225 business partners who work with our academies. MNEA National Teacher Day, where they recognized retirees, also occurred last week. And I think that there's going to be more about that as the evening goes on. But I want to highlight that one special lady, Mrs. Madeline Johnson from Hull Jackson Montessori, brought her very special guest, her first grade teacher, with her to this retirement. And her first grade teacher's name is Mrs. Bernice Bruson, and she's 98 years young. And Madeline was taught by Mrs. Bruson in Chicago, so they have truly come a full circle over her career. Hunters Lane Senior Night is tonight, and so I'm going to dismiss myself a little early to scoot out to attend that. Thank you.
Dr. Brannon? I just have a couple of announcements. This has been a really great week. Last week and so far, we've started a pretty great week. Last week we had the privilege of honoring our 30 and 40 years MNPS employees at a service luncheon. We also had an opportunity to honor our retirees. I also attended, this has been a great week, I also attended on Saturday the School of Science and Math graduations for 19 of our best and brightest. And the reason this is so significant is because several of those students are already published in research journals. If you can imagine 4 years of working with Vanderbilt professors in research labs, and these students come out not only with a certificate of completion, but they also come out with hands-on experience in scientific research, and I think that's pretty amazing, and those are our kids, so that's pretty fantastic. I also want to, in advance, thank every single board member here for the time that you're going to spend at graduations. It is going to be a very long day of shaking hands and smiling and saying congratulations, and it's worth every single moment of it. This is what makes this job well worth it. Don't forget, on the 28th, we will have a work session starting at 5 p.m. But one of the things that I'm pretty excited about is our own Jill Spearing has been nominated for a BAMI. And I'm just going to give you a little bit about the BAMI. The BAMI Awards is a cross-discipline honor that identifies and acknowledges the extraordinary work being done across the entire education field every day. From teachers, principals, and superintendents to school nurses, support staff, advocates, researchers, school custodians, early childhood specialists, education journalists, and parents. The BAMI Awards were created to help reverse the negative national narrative that dominates the education field. And very quickly, I just want to read you Ms. Spearing's little nomination. Jill is an elected school board member of the Metropolitan Nashville Public Schools. Formerly, she taught for 35 years as a classroom teacher, a teacher of struggling readers, a reading recovery teacher, and a professional development leader for other teachers. She has been a mentor for prospective and experienced teachers for decades. She's conducted research in her classroom and with colleagues in other settings. Her research and presentations have reached audiences worldwide. As a school board member, she has taken on multiple leadership roles, always advocating for public schools, educational excellence for all students, and for fairness and justice in application of school policies. She is a leader that is knowledgeable and highly regarded for her careful consideration of issues affecting public schools and her pursuit of high-quality programs that make a difference for students across SES levels. And I encourage you to go to the BAMI Awards website and vote for Ms. Spearing. I think she is very deserving of this award, so congratulations on your nomination. And with that, we will move on. Dr. Register, any announcements for you? With that, we will move on to awards and recognitions. Ms. Rita McDonald.
Good evening, everyone. We have some exciting announcements for you. And Visha, if you don't mind, my photographer is not here. So would you mind doing that for me, please? Not at all. I appreciate it. I love Visha, y'all. Thank you very much. One Nashville is an education initiative of the Nashville Area Chamber of Commerce, and we are so excited to recognize and present our 3 winners who have met the minimum required volunteer hours in Metropolitan Nashville Public Schools over the last 4 months. Volunteers responded to a call to action in January of this year, encouraging businesses, schools, and individuals to log their volunteer hours on schoolvolunteers.org. My photographer just walked in, Nisha.
Okay, Keenan was gonna.
So you all look. And now, we would like to present these winners. The first category, which is our school category, I would like to ask Stephanie Coleman, who's our Vice President of Policy with the Nashville Area Chamber of Commerce, to present our first prize to Stratford High School. They will win a $1,000 check. They win a $1,000 check from the Nashville Area Chamber of Commerce. Of course, Principal Michael Steele is accepting this, and we want to thank you for representing your school, and thanks to all of those who volunteered hours on behalf of Stratford High School. Give them another hand. Thank you. Very good. Now, Cheryl and Dr. Register, we're going to need y'all to hang out with us for just a little bit. We've got 2 more categories that we want to acknowledge. The next category is our business category, and I'm going to ask Mr. Nick Lamattina, if you're with us, come right on up, Nick. And Stephanie Coleman will present the second prize to Angelo's Picnic Pizza. And their prize is a full-page ad in the Tennessean newspaper from the Nashville Area Chamber of Commerce. Owner Nick Lamatina is accepting. Nick, we want to thank you and your wife and your staff for volunteering in Metro Public Schools and to helping to make a difference. He has a passion for this, ladies and gentlemen, so we thank you and your wife. Thank you very much. Full-page ad in the Tennessean. And the last category is, and it's our individual category, with Miss Dawn Hinton. If you're here, would you please come forward? Dawn's not here. Well, we will still, she knows about this, we've already contacted her, and we will still honor her gift. And we have Mr. David Bonner, who's the general manager of Walmart. David, come right on up. And Walmart has donated a $1,000 gift card to Miss Dawn Hinton. She was.
I'll accept her.
Yeah. let's give a hand. Walmart donated. Thank you so much, David, for doing that for us, and we'll make sure Dawn receives that gift card. Thank you so much. And we're going to do one more group photo real quick. Everybody. Me? Thank you. Thanks, everybody. Congratulations. And then to end our presentation, I'd like to call on Connie Williams, the Executive Director of our Pencil Foundation. She's going to come and speak briefly on volunteering. Thanks again to all of our winners.
On behalf of Pencil, I just want to congratulate the folks who won the awards tonight and tell you where they volunteered. Ms. Hinton is a volunteer at McGavock High School and is much deserving of this award. Angelo's Picnic Pizza is a pencil partner with the Academy at Hickory Hollow and is extremely active. And in fact, the school nominated them this year for the Mayor's Award, and we'll be judging those later this week. You know, you may see them again soon, who knows. And I also want to congratulate Michael Steele and Stratford for being the kind of school that encourages volunteerism. That's an important part of making that a success. We're going to log more than $2 million in terms of the value of volunteer time in schoolvolunteers.org. But I want to leave you with the challenge. About 40 of our schools don't track any time in schoolvolunteers.org yet. That means about 70-something do. So most of them do at this point, but we still have a lot of schools who aren't tracking their time. They have volunteers, it just doesn't show up in the reports. We also have about half of our business partners who I know are active in schools who are not logging their time in schoolvolunteers.org. So it's great that they're volunteering, and that's what's most important, but we would love to have the reports that come out of that system be fully representative of the level of volunteer support that folks are giving our schools. So your encouragement in that regard would be much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, Connie.
Thanks so much. And Dawn Hinton just walked in, the individual that won the Walmart gift card.
It's too late. I've already accepted that offer.
I told her we gave her your card, but she said she wants it back. So we've got about 2 minutes left, Dawn. And Stephanie Coleman will present your gift. And we're going to ask Dr. Register and our chair to come back. Do you know how close I am? Congratulations.
She's a card.
Thank you.
Thanks again.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And now, Mr. Stephen Henry.
Well, good afternoon. Last Tuesday, MNEA held its annual National Teachers Day banquet, which in addition to recognizing our retiring members, also honors scholarship and award recipients. For 50 years, MNEA has provided scholarships to MNPS graduates who plan to become teachers, and this year's scholarship awardees are Priscilla Serrano at Antioch, Alexis Chapman, Whites Creek, and Sydney Taylor at Overton. Our Friend of Education Award was established in 2008 as an annual recognition of a person and an organization whose leadership has contributed significantly to the improvement of public education in Nashville. The Metropolitan Public Schools Board of Education received this year's Friend of Education Award. The students, teachers, and Nashville community are so fortunate to have elected officials on the school board whose purpose is so sharply focused on doing the right thing to represent and advocate for Nashville students and teachers. Like previous boards, you've had the courage to make the hard decisions necessary to ensure success for all of our students. While some of those decisions have made the headlines during the past year, you have a body of work that states boldly to all concerned that you take seriously the trust that you've been given and that you will not be bullied into making decisions that will negatively impact our students. We know your motivation for doing this work is not in hopes of receiving an award, but with this award, Nashville's teachers want to publicly say thank you for having that courage to do the right thing.
And I would like every board member to get up and accept this award, please.
Sure.
Hang on, I want to go in here. You're a guy. Here, hold the bell. Hold the bell, yeah. No, there you go. Thank you. That's fantastic. Thank you, Steve. We appreciate it. Okay, thank you. Thank you again, Stephen. That's very much appreciated. Next, we will move into public participation. The board will hear from those persons who have requested to appear at this board meeting. This platform is solely for public comment and not discussion with the board. In the interest of time, speakers are requested to limit remarks to 3 minutes or less. Comments will be timed. As I call your name, please come to the podium. First up is Ms. Sherry Etheridge.
I'm not here tonight to necessarily speak about my objections to the proposed schools on Smith Springs Road, but the communication that has went out from the schools to the public. First, I have got to think that most of you are not aware of these things, so I'm going to tell you what's been going on. Number one, a petition put in the Lakeview Elementary School. Yes, a council rep sent it to the principal. 2 weeks later, the principal came back and said, oh no, I asked for that. I've got the email. So I say, no, that's not correct. Second, a young mother approached me and said Karen Johnson, District 29 council rep, was on school grounds and approached her to have a signature for her petition. But there's something even more appalling. My 3 grandkids came home with a bright yellow paper that talked about the proposed schools on Smith Springs Road and all the wonderful things that this school was going to bring. But nowhere in there did it talk about the Planning Commission having an issue with that piece of property, it being on a dead-end road, having little to no shoulders on this road for our children to walk, the secluded area along Smith Springs Road. You guys are only asking for something to happen to one of these children. It didn't talk about increased traffic to the area. That is a one-way in, one-way out road. You get past Hillshire Drive, there's no access, period. With increased traffic, as we all know, and it is new traffic to that area, there is a higher chance of car accidents. Just with the increased traffic, it will slow down emergency help to our neighbors at the end of the peninsula. And no, I don't live down there. I do now have friends that do. If there is a car accident, it could block that road for hours, leaving the people on the peninsula with no emergency help. There is no way to get anybody to them. And again, I've got to thank everybody that you guys weren't aware of these tactics that were used. Myself, along with many residents, parents, thought that those flyers being sent home was a very manipulative and very tacky way to get parents to call or email their council members. And I agree, parents need to know everybody, educate them, have a meeting at each and every school with the pros and the cons of the site. Let them make an educated choice, not just have it be, oh, this is a great and wonderful thing. And again, guys, I can't not believe all of you knew what was going on out there. But you as a school board, I feel like are there to not only educate our kids, but also to protect them. And those flyers were just horribly manipulative. And I have got to ask you guys.
Thank you, Ms. Etheridge.
Please look at other sites.
Majin Mohina.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Megene Muhina. I'm a Bantu woman. I'm here because I want to explore school to be open. And we have a Mr. John. He's really kind. He supports our kids. I want my little girl, Hawa Osman, to be there too. We thank him for helping our kids to the center, to the schools. And we want to read and to know how to learn in school, reading and writing, because we don't know how to read. Myself, I don't know how to read. I know how to speak, but I don't know how to read and writing. So I want to explore the school to be open, to be down there with Mr. John, with everybody, with the Matt O'Brien too. They are good, kind people to helping child, to helping students. They are really people that we can support too. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you. Jennifer Jackson.
Thank you. My name is Jennifer Jackson, and I'm the mother of two wildly different, equally amazing young children. My 5-year-old daughter is a kindergarten scholar at East End Preparatory School. My 4-year-old son will attend kindergarten in the fall of 2014. This year, experiencing kindergarten for the first time as parents, my husband and I have been overwhelmingly impressed with how much our daughter has grown at East End Prep. Her current reading level is already at the end of 1st grade. She always lends a helping hand to her classmates. She understands that the success of her entire class is as important as her personal success. She chose to join the School Service Learning Club because she wants to make a difference in her school and community. East End Prep has had a major impact in developing her character this year as well as her academic growth. As parents, we recognize that our children are very different. From how they play to how they learn, we realize that what is successful for our daughter may not be the best fit for our son. We believe in choice for our children, and a choice of great schools is key to making sure that both of our children have options to attend high-achieving schools that fit their individual learning styles. Ask our son to write his name with a pencil, and he's likely to run the other direction. Ask him to show you how to write his name, and he will spell it out with Legos and Matchbox cars. We are excited by the model of Explore Community Schools, sponsored by Martha O'Brien Center. Martha O'Brien Center has a long history of success and an understanding of the needs of the communities it serves. Our experience at East End Prep this year has proven to us that Martha O'Brien Center understands that a strong academic background is the key to success.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Kamika Fuller?
Hello, my name is Kamika Fuller, and I am the parent of 3 Metro Nashville Public School students. I have a KIPster a 7th grader at KIPP Academy, and I have a 4th grader and a 2nd grader at Jones Padilla. Why at KIPP Elementary? I had the opportunity to attend a 5th grade award ceremony where the 5th graders had received their awards at the end of the year. There was one student who entered 5th grade at 1st grade reading level, and by the end of 5th grade, she had soared to 5th grade reading level. And I couldn't help but think, wow, how far could this child have gone had she entered KIPP at kindergarten? Well, at the same time, my daughter, who entered KIPP at 5th grade level, she was reading books like Juna B. Jones, and her teacher told her, encouraged her to read more challenging books. My daughter soared to the 11th grade reading level by the end of her 5th grade year. And so I come to let you know that these are great things that are happening, and I believe that an elementary school would have put them on a path to have further learning and more growth, and I think that all the students in the community would benefit from it. We have kids that are sharing books, that have a love for learning. I also appreciate the fact that colleges put in their head as soon as they begin school, so therefore my daughter's already thinking about colleges and things that she wants to do and visiting colleges. Those are things that I think beginning in kindergarten, when we start our kids early, that they'll be prepared to go further and anticipate that that's going to happen, as opposed to getting that realization later on. So that is one of the reasons that I believe, or several of the reasons why I believe a KIPP Elementary is necessary. Seeing the excitement and the self-accomplishment that these children have for the growth that they've maintained and that they've seen for themselves is truly invaluable to the community that KIPP serves, as well as Greater Nashville. Thank you.
Thank you. Alma Sanford?
My name is Alma Sanford. I live at 6317 Paddington Way in District 33 Metro Council and District 7 School Board. And I'm sorry that my school board member is unable to be here tonight. I had talked to him and I knew about that. I'm here tonight to say thank you. Thank you for a job well done. I was here last September when you voted to buy land on Smith Springs Road about 1.5 miles from where I live. I have visited many of our local schools, and I know how very crowded they are. I know that 2 schools that would be relieved of crowding by building a new school on Smith Springs Road both have multiple portables out back. I wouldn't want my child to go to school in a portable, and I doubt that anyone else does, and I know none of you want a child to go in a portable. I'm quite sure of that. As you all know, our city has been named the IT City in various journals and on TV and on the website, and we know that we have the best city in the world. And I know that each of you is working hard to make sure we have the best schools of any city in the world. Schools that meet the expectations of our citizens and that meet the other wonderful things that we have in the city. I don't have to tell you about this city. I visited Louisville this last weekend, and I came home thinking, wow, I'm glad I don't live in Louisville anymore. I did live there. My daughter was born there, but Nashville is just so much better. Maybe I'm too proud, but I think our city is just wonderful and perfect in every way. And our new Music City Center is opening to make it even better, so how exciting can it be? But I did attend a meeting on April the 11th that your chair, Cheryl Mace, hosted, and I was so impressed and thankful for all the people that you brought to tell us what you've done since you made that vote last September. The engineers you brought to tell us how they had vetted that land. The traffic engineer who told us that a traffic study had been done. The reports that we got from Dr. Register about all the information that had been gained to make sure that this land was perfect. Then I got online. We couldn't quite see the maps at that particular location. We couldn't see the PowerPoint presentation so well, so I got online, and I was so impressed with what is on your website. I looked at the scatter map of where the children live close to that site and realized that is the exact site we need. And when I hear people say, that's a dead-end street, it's this and that. I know many ways to get out of that location. I go over there a lot. I live really close. I know that the YMCA campus there was 700 children. They've been there since the late 90s. They've never had an incident of a child getting drowned in the lake, of a child being hurt, of any emergency vehicle being stopped because of them being there.
Thank you, Ms.
Thank
Sanford.
you for all you're doing.
Megan Proctor?
Good evening. I'm here tonight in support of Valor, the application for Valor Collegiate. I'm an advocate for high quality choices throughout Nashville, and in particular Southeast Nashville and Antioch. There are two very important reasons that I'm here tonight, and her name is Anna and his name is Nate. And Anna is completing 2nd grade at Maxwell Elementary this year, and Nate will enter kindergarten in the fall. Anna is a left brain, creative, interpersonal learning style child, and he seems to be a little bit more, did I call her right brain? She's left brain. He's the other way, he needs to move to learn, and he does cartwheels and headstands when you teach him a new word, when you do his phonics lessons. And I just really, this has brought me to be an advocate for personalized learning plans, and I know that Valor Collegiate has that in their, has personalized learning within their plans, and there's also a really positive aspect of being in metro public schools, or especially in an urban area like Nashville, and the diversity that's within Nashville and in the MNPS is really important to our family, and I know that Valor Collegiate has a strategic plan to include diversity, to recruit a diverse population, and for that I really am grateful that they are matching up with the board's goals and new initiative there. At any rate, I really wanted to encourage you all to approve Valor Collegiate's application and to continue to bring us really great schools in the Antioch and Cane Ridge cluster, whether that's traditional schools or magnets or charter schools. We really are looking forward to some great schools in the near future. Thank you.
Thank you. Michelle Morrow. Tiffany Miner.
Hello, my name is Tiffany Griffin Miner. I'm here as well in support of Valor Collegiate. My children attend Maxwell Elementary. I have a she's not 4, she's in the 4th grade, and I have a kindergartner as well. Neither one of my children will be eligible right now to go to Valor Collegiate, but my main reason for being here in support of the schools are for the options, for the choices. I think that our area really needs the choice. I'm a bit of a hovercraft as a mother. I hover wherever they are, and I plan to hover wherever they are. Today I received an email from an art teacher at Maxwell telling me that she really appreciated my child's involvement and that he turned in a project on time, which was really, really rare for us, and a great job. So I'm not unhappy at Maxwell. I love Maxwell, and I love the Cane Ridge cluster and the opportunities my children will have. But I think it's extremely important that all the children and all the parents have choices, and we have options and support in doing that. So for that reason, I'm here, and I ask that you please consider Valor Collegiate. Thank you.
Thank you. Sunil Townsend.
Good evening. I am Samuel Townsend, and I'm an 8th grader at KIPP Academy in Nashville. First, I would like to thank you for allowing me to speak here today. Starting off at KIPP in my 5th grade year, I was behind grade level, reading at a 3rd grade reading level, and now, ending my 8th grade year, I am reading at Post High School. Why KIPP Elementary? Because I have a little brother, and he's 3 years old, and I don't want him to have to struggle to play catch up with his academics like I had to. I want him to leave elementary school and enter in middle school knowing everything he needs to excel to move on to high school and hopefully go to college one day. KIPP, I feel, has prepared me for everything I need in life. They have shown me that education is very important, and at KIPP we are a team and family, and I hope that one day my brother and other little kids will have a chance to experience that too. Again, thank you for letting me speak to you all today, and I hope that you strongly consider letting KIPP Academy open up their elementary school. Thank you.
Thank you. Jean Smalley? Going once? Gone. Sherry Patterson? Seems that we're missing a few people. All right, and before we move ahead, I would like to take an opportunity to say congratulations to Ms. Spearing and also to our own Ms. Hawkins for your children that will be graduating from Hillsborough. I know you two have to leave to attend award ceremonies. It's Ms. Hawkins last, can you tell? I thank you so much, and congratulations again to you both. Ms. Shepherd, moving on to governance issues.
The consent agenda is as follows. 1A, approval of minutes, 4/113 special meeting and 4/913 regular meeting. B, recommended award of contract for HVAC renovations at Apollo Middle School, Advanced Mechanical Contractors, Inc., MBOE, FGM 2013-01. C, recommended award of contract for Antioch Middle School renovations, TBD 5/1/2013, MBOE 12-009. D, recommended award for a contract for AZ Kelly Elementary School Classroom Addition, TBD 5/7/2013, MBOE 12-017. E, recommended award of contract for stadium lighting at various schools, Antioch, Hillwood, and Pearl Cone High Schools, TBD 5/7/2013, MBOE 13-009. F, recommended award of contract for window replacement at Hume Fogg High School, Southland Constructors, LLC, MBOE 13-010. G, Amendment A for Energy Management Services, Facility Services, Inc., L-2894. H, change order number 2 for Pearl Cone High School pool renovations, Edwards Constructions, M-476. I, recommended approval of lease for Lead Academy Charter Schools use of the Brookmead Building. J, recommended approval of lease for Lead Prep Southeast Charter Schools use of a portion of the Cameron Building. K, recommended approval of lease amendment for KIPP Academy Nashville Charter Schools use of the Ewing Park Building. L, recommended approval of lease amendment for East End Preparatory Schools use of the Dellwood Building. M, awarding of bids and contracts. 1, Avotech. 2, Learning Labs. 3, Insight Educational Group, Inc. 4, Invent Now, Inc. 5, Cambion Education, Inc., doing business as Sopris West Educational Services. 6, University Community Health Services. 7, Thomas Tours. 8, Spectrum Center Schools, a division of Educational Services of America. 9, Alternatives Unlimited, Inc. 10, The Gorilla Garage of Nashville, LLC. 11, System Integrators, Inc. 12, Sims Strategic Diversity Consultants. 13, LPS Integration, Inc. 14, Francis Communications, Inc. 15, The Bar Group, Inc. 16, LifeTouch National School Studios. 17, Herf Jones, Inc. 18, Jostens, Inc. N, recommended approval of legal settlement claim number L-15599, $42,000. O, recommended approval of request for compulsory attendance waiver. P, recommended approval of special career and technical educational courses, alternative energy production, music industry survey, media publishing 1, recording industry 1, career essentials, engineering software applications, advanced aerosmith and air traffic control, and biotechnologies 1, 2, and 3. And Q, recommended approval of the 2013-2014 career and technical education application. Madam Chair, that concludes the consent agenda. I move that it be passed as read.
Is there a second?
Against what direction? Aerospace.
Did I say Aerosmith?
You're thinking about the band, aren't you? Is there a second? Second. Any discussion? All in favor of approval, please say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, Ms. Shepherd. Dr. Register.
Madam Chair, members of the board, have our recommendations of charges supporting dismissal of Tracy L. Stevens that I'll read into the record. Dear board members, I'm writing to recommend the dismissal of Tracy L. Stevens from employment as a tenured teacher with the Metropolitan Nashville Public Schools pursuant to TCIA subsection 49-5-511. I have charged her with unprofessional conduct becoming a teacher with MNPS, which is grounds for her dismissal pursuant to Tennessee Code Annotated 49-5-511. These terms are specifically defined in Tennessee Code Annotated 49-5-501. Evidence supporting these charges was set forth in my letter to Tracy Stevens on May 6, 2013, a copy of which is attached. I am asking you to certify these charges by voting that if proven true, these charges warrant Ms. Stevens' dismissal. Should you certify these charges, I will inform Ms. Stevens of your action and formally advise her of the right to request a hearing before an impartial hearing officer. At the present time, I am only asking you to certify the charges. I am not asking you to weigh evidence either for or against dismissal. I am merely asking you to vote that the charges, if proven true, warrant dismissal. If Ms. Stevens requests a hearing, it will occur at some point in the future. Accordingly, it is my recommendation that Tracy L. Stevens be dismissed from employment with the Metropolitan Nashville Public Schools. Sincerely, Jesse B. Register.
Is there a motion to certify the charges as read?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes.
And a second letter, charges supporting the dismissal of Sylvia McCarthy. Dear board members, I'm writing to recommend the dismissal of Sylvia McCarthy from employment as a tenured teacher with the Metropolitan Nashville Public Schools pursuant to Tennessee Code Annotated 49-5-511. I have charged her with insubordination and inefficiency, which are grounds for her dismissal pursuant to Tennessee Code Annotated 49-5-511. These terms are specifically defined in Tennessee Code Annotated 49-5-501. Evidence supporting these charges was set forth in my letter to Sylvia McCarthy on May 6, 2013, a copy of which is attached. I am asking you to certify these charges by voting that if proven true, these charges warrant Ms. McCarthy's dismissal. Should you certify these charges, I will inform Ms. McCarthy of your action and formally advise her of the right to request a hearing before an impartial hearing officer. At the present time, I am only asking you to certify the charges. I am not asking you to weigh evidence either for or against dismissal. I'm merely asking you to vote that if the charges, if proven true, warrant dismissal. If Ms. McCarthy requests a hearing, it will occur at some point in the future. Accordingly, it is my recommendation that Sylvia McCarthy be dismissed from employment with Metropolitan Nashville Public Schools. Sincerely, Jesse B. Register.
Is there a motion to certify charges?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, Dr. Register. And with that, we will move into the director's report.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I'll ask Jay Steele to come up to the podium, and he will be one of the first presenters in this interim report that we're presenting tonight. And I'll ask the other chief officers to come up as we introduce their part of the PowerPoint. This is a little deviation from normal in terms of presenting our TOG reports and dashboards to the board. It is the time of year, it is on our calendar to do this, but please consider this as an interim report rather than a final report. If our office central office reorganization was announced in February of this year. And at that time, we indicated that it would take approximately 6 months to fully implement the central office reorganization. We are making very good progress toward this report now, toward finalizing the reorganization of the central office, but we still have some work to do, and we expect final reorganization to be completed in July. And we expect at the same time that we complete the central office reorganization, report for you a presentation on the development of an updated or a new strategic plan, if you will. The reorganization has really been a focus on leadership to increase flexibility, authority, and accountability of principals, to give them more authority as they go forward, to build instructional leadership capacity at the school level, and to modify the central office structure to create a more unified vision to support the model, to sharpen our focus, to sharpen collaboration of the central office. And you can see the org chart. You've already had a copy of this. I've asked the chief officers to help present just at a very high level some of the change that we're going through at this time. This is a process report. It is not completed. Does not have outcomes at this point in time, but to give you an update on where we are, and then I'll make some concluding remarks at the end. I've asked Jay Steele, our chief academic officer, to begin the presentation and what we're presenting very quickly, very succinctly, is transition highlights as we go through our org chart. So Jay, I'll turn it over to you now.
Thank you, Dr. Redster. Each of you have an article that that Dr. Redster has given you. I assume you have it, on principal networks and the research behind that. As we make the transition to decentralized leadership in our district, currently we have 9 lead network principals, 3 at elementary, 3 at middle, 3 at high school. Over the next 3 years, our plan is to phase in a 100% school district led by the network leads and managed by lead principals at the district level. So next year, in 2013-14, the high schools will be completely led by a group of 3 to 5 network lead principals and managed by 1.5 executive leads at the district level. In the second year, the middle schools will move to 100% led by network leads. In the third year, the elementaries will be 100% led by network principals that are school-based principals, and then managed by executive lead principals that are housed at the district level. So that is a complete shift of leadership to the schools, to school-based leadership. The next piece, the last bullet there is a major shift in the way we look at curriculum and professional development. Currently, we have 6.5 curriculum coordinators that are housed here at the district level, of math, science, social studies, language arts, reading, PE, wellness, that manage all curriculum for the district and manage the textbook process and professional development in those areas. We are moving away from that model, and we are moving to a school-based master teacher or lead coach network. We are in the process of identifying right now 16 coaches that will become lead coaches, that will become 11-month employees, that will manage all professional development for the district, that will make the decisions about curriculum and instruction and resource materials for the district. They will be managed by the executive directors of instruction for both elementary and middle. So it will create a network of school-based professionals that are experts that will know the best, most knowledgeable updates of curriculum at the classroom level and be making the decisions from the school to the district level. So this is currently being rolled out next year, and you'll notice that in your budget, that 16 lead coaches will be identified, and we will no longer have curriculum coordinators.
Thanks, Jay. Next, Tony Majors, Chief Support Services Officer. Tony?
Since the restructuring of central office, we have seen increased alignment and coordination between the various divisions and departments here in central office. From the support services side, as you heard Jay discuss the things that he's doing in leadership and learning, you're seeing an intentional focus on other departments to align with leadership and learning to make sure we're providing the levels of supports and assistance necessary for our teachers and administrators and students to be successful. For tonight's presentation, support services, I think we went too far. Support services is going to focus on strengthening the impact of support services or cluster support model, and expanding and deepening the community support services to improve student academic, social, and emotional needs through collaborative structures and efforts of Community Achieve. Pretty much from the strengthening impact of the cluster support model, we're really focusing on improving data quality in conjunction with our IT and data management department, improving the delivery of services to our at-risk students by early identification and strategic alignment of support systems, expanding student and parental engagement, including joining national networks and training of parents, as well as our family involvement specialists and cluster support team members, as well as improved community partnerships and support networks. That also supports the expansion and deepening of the community support systems, primarily through our development of our Community Achieves Transformational Leadership Group. At this point, we have identified and schools have signed on. We have 19 schools that are going through the process of becoming full-service community schools. Our parent leadership training will be provided through a PTA grant that was awarded to Metro Nashville Public Schools just a few months ago, as well as we have joined the Joyce Epstein's National Parent Engagement Network, and she has already come in and conducted training for our family involvement specialists and cluster support team members, and will continue to work with our department over the next few years to make sure we know best practices and dealing with parents and community members, and we're training this necessary staff to intervene and work with those populations effectively. And next will be Ms. Thompson, our Chief Human Capital Officer.
Mr. Majors, I just wanted to mention there was a blurb that was written in one of the school board magazines, and I can't remember which one that I recently received, talking about Community Achieves. So kudos to you guys. It talked about how Nashville is moving forward with Community Achieves. So I just wanted to let you know that. I'm not sure if you've seen it, and if I find it, I'll send it to you. But I just read it this past week, so kudos.
All right, thank you.
Good evening. Just to update from where we were when we spoke with you a month or so ago on our board work session. As you can see, the key piece that we're looking at in human capital is about streamlining our operations and becoming much more efficient and much more effective in all those things that we're doing. We're really engaging in a highly collaborative effort with the other divisions within our district. In this particular, we're going to highlight our collaboration with leadership and learning, as well as with the Chief Operating Officer, Fred Carr's departments, looking at data and those types of things. And on that first piece, when we look at that whole talent strategy flow, is that first bullet there, we're really looking at all of our processes, our policies, our guidelines, our practices. We're engaging leadership and learning, which we do that work hand in hand in putting highly effective teachers and leaders in classrooms and in our schools across the district, and doing those types of things in a much more intentional, much more focused way, and engaging our best thinking around those areas. And then working with Fred Carr as the Chief Operating Officer in his group, not only in working with their data warehouse and getting the information that we need and asking for so that we can do better on the first bullet, we're also looking at that whole piece of shifting from paper to a digital environment. And we're one of the first groups that they're walking out some of the work that they're doing, and so then that leads us into Fred Carr.
Good evening. One of the things that I hope you've heard is each of us mention how we're working with the others to make things happen. And in my division, we're supporting a couple of major initiatives in support services, where we are embarking on a data quality program to ensure that our data that goes to the state on our teachers and students is as accurate as possible. The state has made some changes that requires us to have that data be perfect the first time out. So we are implementing a number of initiatives to do that, including a project called Master Data Management, MDM, which the short version is Master Data Management is a single version of the truth, which is the data that we can count on from all of these systems to be exact. And if it was that simple, I'd be really pleased, but it's not. However, that is the project. Our other partnership with Leadership and Learning, which is a key partnership, is looking at the implementation of Common Core. Common Core requires a different way of teaching a different way of delivering instruction, very heavy in the use of technology. So we are partnering very closely with Leadership and Learning to change the teaching paradigm in the classroom through the use of technology. And you'll be hearing more about that as we move forward and as we talk about our capital budget expenditures. And Meredith will now wrap up how we're all doing this together and pointing it to the public.
We are glad you enjoyed I think that was the Urban Educator article that you saw.
I think that's what it was.
Watch future editions for more good news from Metro Schools. You can see a few of our highlights here. One is the government liaison, better known to all of you as Hank Clay. He actually reports to Dr. Register, but we claim him as our own. Success has many mothers, it's true, because we find that the work he does and the work that we do integrate very closely, and that since he is working with one of our key constituencies in communications, that we find that in addition to the work that he does directly for Dr. Register, he's got a vast multiplier as an honorary communications team member. We are also looking, I think you have heard our reports from the Customer Service Center here. We are pleased to report it continues to be cited as a best practice. We do have a continuous improvement model in our Customer Service Center. This year we have had visitors from Memphis and inquiries from Milwaukee and Louisville, among others. I understand this continues a tradition that really that we're a model customer service center that began when we opened the Customer Service Center, and as I said, we continually refine and improve. It is a data-driven practice, and that's why it was a very good candidate for Six Sigma Greenbelt training. I know Ms. Mays is probably familiar with this from the automotive industry, but it's a way to improve quality and eliminate defects by looking at all the inputs, everything that could possibly go wrong in a process, and then to change and improve your process. We realized that this was a tool we could use in our schools, and specifically in the Customer Service Center. Went looking around for training, realized we couldn't afford it, and then Cap Financial stepped in and offered to train 2 of our people for free, so we're delighted with that. We now have, we sent the manager of the Customer Service Center, Mark Chamberlain, and our Executive Director of Transportation, Keith Phillips, because we found that a lot of the calls to our Customer Service Center relate to transportation. So they're working together on a pilot project. Cap Financial has actually offered to come into our district over the summer and teach another set of green belts. So we'll have an opportunity to apply this in more places. So we're very excited about that. And then finally, while taking nothing away from the work that we do externally with the media and with our families, we also identified a need to expand and improve our internal communications efforts, because we know that our school quality is improving, student achievement is rising, and we want to make sure that all of our employees are well positioned to help us tell our story.
Okay. Thanks, Meredith. So what do we have? What's left? We hope to complete the work that we're doing on central office restructuring by July 1st, and there are 3 or 4 points that I'll make to pull it together. What else are we doing between now and the end of the fiscal year or the middle of the summer, getting ready to start a new school year? One is to complete the performance framework. The school performance framework that you've seen draft versions of, preliminary versions. Dr. Changus and his staff continues to work and refine that document, which we think is very powerful. It's proving to be very powerful. We want that data to be 3 years worth of data when we finally approve that, and hopefully between now and sometime in July we'll have the data that we need to complete that 3-year process on the performance framework. The other thing that we're working that's directly related is identification of district performance goals, and these are district-wide goals that we have, relating those to the development of a new strategic plan, to the evaluation of the director, and really building what we think is a very good set of long-range performance goals for our school system. We look forward to sharing that with you, and our intentions are to give you a view of that before the end of this month, perhaps in the work session as a part of that, so that you can see that that work's going on. The third piece that I want to announce is that those district performance goals are a part of the metrics of our strategic plan. Our chief officer staff has been working for some months now with Lisa Wiltshire, who is facilitating an update of this district strategic plan. It's an inductive process. We've been in MNPS Achieves the TLG work now for 3 years, and there are many initiatives going on. It's time to look at those initiatives, to refine them, to sharpen the focus, to choose those high-yield strategies that we're implementing in the district, and to commit it to a strategic plan that looks 3 to 5 years in the future. The presentation to you will be a draft, of course. I think that this is a collaborative effort between the leadership of the district, and the leadership of the board to roll this out, but we look forward to giving you an opportunity to see that very soon. And then a final piece that I'll speak to is something that we just started this spring, and that's our Emerging Knowledge Forum series. We had a great start with Professor Andy Hargreaves from Boston College. We want to plan, and we're in the planning process now for a series of emerging knowledge forums to take place during the school year. Dean Camilla Bimbo at Vanderbilt and I co-chair this work. It's co-sponsored by Peabody and MNPS, and we look forward to having nationally renowned speakers come and address some of the issues that we're dealing with in our school system. And as I said, this is intended to be an interim report. We don't have a dashboard for you at this time. We don't have outcomes for you at this time, although we hope you can see a part of the process that we're going through and recognize the work of our chief officers. I want to personally say that I am very pleased with the work going on in the school system with the restructuring. I think we have the right people organized the right way doing this work, and a support team backing up our chief officers, the major divisions of the school system, if you will. I feel like our operations are much more efficient and much more effective than they've ever been. So I would like to congratulate you for the work that you've done. Hopefully you've gotten a little bit of a vision of that this evening. See if there are any questions.
I just have another comment too. On the, I have received a lot of feedback on the New Look Children's First blog. It is absolutely fantastic. It's a lot easier to read, and I'm finding that a lot of people are actually paying attention to it now. So that's been a really fun thing and really positive. So thank you for that. Any other comments, Ms. Shepard?
I have just one. And Mr. Carr, this is mostly, I guess, directed at you because we have had our struggles, especially in my district, with transportation. So I'm really anxious, excited to see how this new focus on the recruitment of bus drivers and the retention of them as well, so that maybe we can alleviate some of the double trips that are happening. I appreciate that.
Any other comments? Mr. Hayes.
Thank you. I think this is fantastic, and I think this might be directed to Dr. Register, maybe Mr. Steele, 2013-14. What's it mean, for example, for Hillsborough? So we've got Dr. Schrader. Will Dr. Schrader, for example, become a lead principal, or a lead principal will be, and I think probably a lot of us would be curious for each of the high schools that are in our clusters.
Right now, the application is out to every principal to apply to be a lead principal. Those applications are due within the next 2 weeks. On June 7th, we have a team that will be interviewing, and we are looking to select anywhere from 3 to 5 additional ones. That would take it to 5 at the high school level to make it 100% lead. And of course, Dr. Schrader is encouraged to apply, just like every other principal. That would take it to 4 at the middle and 4 at the elementary.
So.
That's a minimum right now.
If, let's say Dr. Schrader is not selected, would he become would he be encouraged to apply for a new job somewhere else? He would be an associate principal? Or
No, he would still be the principal of Hillsborough High School. He would be in a network that's led by one of the other sitting principals in another school. For example, Robin Wall is a lead principal. He has a network. His network is all the middle schools that feed into McGavock. Steve Ball is also a network principal. He is the network principal over leading principals at other schools, middle and high.
So when I understand your concern, when we say 100%, what we're talking about is 100% of the principals being a part of a network.
Being a part of a network. So
Yes,
So
that's
it's
correct.
not that every school would, 100% led by school-based lead principals. So
Yes.
every school is in a network with a lead principal.
Yes.
Who's in the building?
No, the lead principals are, Jay, if you want to talk about this, lead principals direct the networks, supervise small groups of principals, and when we say 100%, that means that all of our high school executive principals would be a part of a small network of principals.
Led by a network.
Led by a network principal.
Led
network
by an
lead
executive lead principal.
Correct.
Who reports to who?
Okay, let me go over the structure, because the terminology. At the district level, there's executive leads. There are 6 of them. 3 at secondary and 3, they're currently in place now, 3 at secondary and 3 at elementary. They will be the actual boss of the new network leads.
Right.
Okay, and those network leads are school-based principals that will do all the leading of all of the high school principals. They will do their evaluations.
So those executive leads are in place. They report to you?
Yes.
So you?
And Brenda Steele.
And Brenda?
Yes.
Executive leads, principals, associate principals?
No, assistant principals.
Assistant
Yes.
principals.
Yes, that's the structure.
There's been a lot of discussion, I guess, through some of the Annenberg work we've done, tribal reports and others around autonomy, budget autonomy, choices. How does that begin to migrate out to the high schools, for example, with this? So if we're going to 100% led by school-based lead principals, does that school-based lead principal have budget autonomy?
Yes, I think Chris is going to address that a little bit later, but the lead principals that are running networks have autonomy.
Can you talk more about their autonomy?
For staffing and budgeting purposes.
And so if we want to compare it, for example, and I could maybe easily do this with a charter, right? Like the dollars follow the kids. When Mr. Henson talks about dollars going out, we send $45 million out to charter schools. With the same type, if that's and maybe that's not the exact number, but it's a number in the 40s, would that kind of dollar for dollar follow the children to the high school so that we can begin to really account for every dollar for every child and where it flows?
It's the same concept, but it's a different calculation. The calculation required for charter schools is total state and local revenue divided by total number of students. What we're looking at when we're talking about budget autonomy and school-based budgeting, we have 17 schools that are going through that process currently, all of the I-zone schools plus those schools that have a lead principal. And what we're looking at is all of the funding that would be allocated directly to those schools in terms of staffing formulas and other formulas that we have where funding is made available to those schools. They receive that in lump sum and then determine how they want to split up all of that funding based upon different types of positions, of course, based upon what state law requires for pupil-teacher ratios, et cetera. And so we have been going through that process through the spring and continue to go through that process. They're not all finalized yet for next year, but it's been very successful. But it will not be the same dollars because it only looks at the dollars that are directly allocated to those schools. It doesn't take into consideration, for instance, the total maintenance department budget or the total transportation department budget. It looks only at the total dollars that would be allocated to those schools based upon staffing formulas and other formulas. But we could look at a per pupil amount. It'll be much lower at those schools because it's not the total state and local revenue divided by the number of students. But we do have some preliminary budgets, and these principals have done a really good job. It's a pilot. This is our first year with these 17 schools, and we're looking to expand that further next year once we've got these in place, and of course provide additional training to the principals. But I think they've been very appreciative regarding the process, and also looking at the limitations that exist when you have state statutes relating to pupil-teacher ratios, what all you can do or can't do.
I'm wondering, and this is, I'm wondering in a year or 2 years, so next summer, what are you going to tell us about how this worked? What are you excited about with this process? You know, you're going to come next summer, I'll be sitting here and I'll be asking you questions. What are you going to tell me is a big success story? What should I listen for and be excited about?
Well, you should, student achievement is number one. We want to give the power to the principals and the teachers to make the decisions that are going to affect student achievement in our metrics that, that are outlined by the state and the metrics that are being planned in our strategic plan. So that's the driver of everything, is student achievement, student mastery, and the success there. We're hoping that by moving the decisions to the school level, through curriculum, through instruction, through professional development, through resources, that they can target the needs in their school and not be directed at our level. So student achievement would be my answer to that.
And I will say, Mr. Steele, in talking to a few principals in my district, I have had the feedback that they're very excited about the changes. Mainly from executive principals, because it gives them an opportunity to build or rebuild that culture in their school, and there is no getting rid of somebody just because you don't like them. You get them, you deal with them, and you make that school your own. It provides an ownership level. So I've got a lot of feedback from the principals in my district about positive feedback about these changes. So I think it's going to work out well, but you know.
Perhaps a better way to think about it structurally, or a different way to think about it structurally, is you build networks. People learn how to work together in small networks, and you have a coordinator of that network. But what's really important, and this goes back to a point that you were raising, is that we want all of our principals to increase in their leadership skills and abilities to become more autonomous, to have greater flexibility. We want them to learn how to manage more effectively the funds that they have, how to staff their schools, how to develop that staff, how to staff their schools based on the needs of their schools. We want instructional leadership placed in those schools, and that makes us less bureaucratic. It's not complete autonomy, but because there are guiding principles that we have, but it's a really powerful model. As we move forward, we want to take it to scale, and that means that we want to go to 100% of all of our principals in 3 years or so, having that greater autonomy in our district.
And if you do look at the research in the packet, that the article that was given you is addressing graduation rates. It is addressing achievement rates in math and reading and science.
And I would think that you know, that network ownership would lend itself to greater academic achievement, because again, you take ownership of what you have and you're more inclined to make sure that your children succeed within your network. So I think it will be a positive for all of our students. Any other questions, comments? Ms. Frost?
First of all, I want to congratulate everybody for taking this bold step to create more school autonomy and to bring governance down to the school level. I think that's wonderful. I had the same question that Michael had about budget. So am I understanding correctly that next year the principals will be allowed to manage their budget, or is that a long-term plan? Sorry.
Just stay up there, Chris. You're next anyway.
For the 17 schools that are in the pilot, again, that's all the I-Zone schools plus all the schools that are led by a network lead principal. They have had really almost full flexibility in determining how they wanted to utilize that funding, what kind of positions they wanted to have, whether they wanted to have 1 or 2 or 0 of those types of positions. And so those 17 have had basically full flexibility relating to the total amount of funding that would have been coming to their school anyway through the existing formulas. And the average per pupil amount, if you look at not just the local budget, but you look at their title budget plus any grants that they may have, it's averaging about $6,700 per school that's directly going to those schools. Some are more, of course, and some are less, depending upon their amount of federal funding or grant funding. But those, again, are the pilot schools. We currently do give discretion to schools relating to their per pupil allocation that the district provides. For instance, the $50 per student that's allocated to each school. All we ask is that they make sure that they look at their school improvement plan and the goals and objectives that are set out in their school improvement plan to determine how they want to spend that money on instructional materials and supplies, et cetera. And that's also a requirement as they determine how they want to spend their federal money, their title money, is looking at their individual school improvement plans and what those goals and objectives are in that school improvement plan to increase student achievement. And so schools already currently have some level of flexibility. What we're giving these 17 schools is much more flexibility regarding different types of positions that they want to have in their buildings, along with some of the existing flexibility that they've had all along. But the goal, again, is to increase the number of schools that do have this, what we're calling autonomy, funding autonomy or budget autonomy next year until we make it district-wide.
Okay, and then I had a couple more questions. One thing that's come up in conversations with one principal that I talked to is sort of what incentives or support might be in place for the lead principals. And, I think the obvious incentive is that the principals get to help create a stronger, feeder system into their schools. But, the principal I spoke with is saying, this would be difficult because it would sort of distract her from, from the work that she is already doing at her school. So I was wondering if we had any sort of ideas about incentives or support, or, since they are going to be putting a lot more time and hours,
Yes.
More into this.
What we've done so far, and of course this is somewhat dependent, it's not somewhat, it's dependent on our budget and how much we can grow this year, but one position. If you have a network lead or a lead principal is responsible for working in 5 or 6 schools, then that expectation is 1 or 2 days a week. And we've been assigning one additional assistant principal or position to the school in the teacher allotment for that person to use. And that's worked very well so far. We'll evolve with that. When we look at the model that Jay talked about earlier, the network lead coaches, we see building a staff there of some of those lead coaches also working with the lead principals to spread service, to provide service on a broader scale than just in one school. And so we want to, and there won't be a pure partnership there, but a number of our network leads will have lead coaches who are based in their schools but who work with other schools at the same time. So it's really building on the concept of networks and providing some additional assistance for the principals to do that. Now the other side of that equation is there are 8 fewer curriculum coordinators in the central office. So, and I don't think we can determine that it's a complete wash on funding now. I think particularly with assistant principals, we're talking about 3 or 4 or 5 additional positions in the district this year, depending on how far we go with the model. But the model would be to build that out with an additional position in each school.
And I got one final question. So the question that's been asked is whether we have reduced central office staff, and we haven't at this point. And I'm wondering, do we have intentions of doing that, or do we think these are necessary? Okay.
Yes,
right.
Next part of the report.
Okay.
Any other questions?
The answer is yes.
Okay.
I had the same question, but one is, it was around the shift of resources from central office to schools. And if the operating theory is that, the reason why we're decentralizing is to give autonomy to schools to unleash leadership, to attract the kind of leaders that we want, who have the capacity and ability to drive student achievement and all the growth that we want to see. And the theory is that then, yes, they need control over hiring, they need control over budgets, because any leader worth his or her salt needs to have that in place so that they can make all the decisions and be held accountable to those results. So when we think about that, and I think about the budget process, like, I don't know this question, but I'm trying, like, so there's a big spectrum, I suppose, of action on that front. So, and it sounds like we've taken, like, the first tranche, at least in MNPS, is to take the 17 schools and to pilot it. You take someone like the ASD, you know, where they actually give 100% of the funds to each school, and then, you know, those schools can choose from a menu of services, including, you know, everything from food to transportation. I mean, they have full, true 100% autonomy, and then everything in between, and then none of that, you know. And so it sounds like we're like somewhere in the middle of the spectrum. Like, how are you all thinking long term about, like?
Yeah, so it's a really good question, and I think the answer to that evolves over time. So what are the weaknesses in complete autonomy in individual schools? That's lack of system support. And so what we're doing here is we're looking at increasing that level of autonomy. We're building the leadership capacity, the decision-making capacity, the instructional leadership capacity in schools, but we're also keeping the systemic approach. There are many things that that schools can't do on their own, and I'll point to one. I'll point to Paul Changus and our research and development work. We have the best. We have the best in Tennessee in really helping analyze work. We've developed a data warehouse that's state-of-the-art in the country. We're learning how to use that more. So there is an infrastructure that is really important, and I think the way to characterize it is we want to build autonomy. We want to give principals the decision-making authority where it's appropriate, and to the extent that they have the ability to make those decisions effectively. But at the same time, we want to provide the system infrastructure that's extremely important, like a transportation system, like a facilities system.
Yeah, and just to be totally clear, like, I agree. Like, if I was a principal in the system, there is no doubt I would buy Paul Changus' services. There's no question. At the menu of options, I said, check. I am not going to try and outsource that. It makes no sense. It's world class over here. But that's the point. It incentivizes Paul then, right, to provide the best services for our schools. It incentivizes every single department to do that transportation, so the challenges that, you know, Ms. Shepard was talking about, incentivizes everybody. And then if it doesn't work, then people can try and outsource, but that's the whole point. I mean, and so I'm not saying that, I mean, I'm sure that the district would create services, and yes, the whole thing is to drive continuous improvement and excellence that people would want to buy into.
So, yes, now I'm not ready to sell Paul's services yet. But you know, the goal is to debureaucratize the system, but to have a highly effective system that serves the schools. And I think this is a really good first step and a good way to get into that. And quite frankly, these chief officers have been selected because they buy into that process. And you know, we've added Katie Core to human capital. Katie back there on the second row, and Susan's leading human capital in a very different way now. We're looking at our iZone, the work that Alan Coverstone's done to create that greater autonomy in our schools. But we have to recognize that it is a great advantage to have great system support also for those schools. And we have to realize that going to scale doesn't happen overnight. You don't have 153 principals ready to go and do this year. We have to build the capacity to do that over time.
Any other questions?
Yes.
Dr. Brannon.
I'm interested in knowing whether or not there's a stopgap in terms of instructional autonomy and curriculum. Is there a stopgap in terms of instructional practices and curriculum because we will not have the curriculum specialists? So our academic team is responsible for all curriculum. And then if you have the autonomy within the schools, principals can work with their staffs on creating other practices. what's to keep us from having
So while
many different systems within the system?
Really good question. So while Jay's coming up, let me give a general answer and then he can be more specific. There are guiding principles and non-negotiables. We're going to implement Common Core. And there'll be a support system to implement Common Core. Now I'll let Jay.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. As a district, we're going to narrow and focus the initiatives to anywhere from 3 to 5 initiatives. And those will be district initiatives that will be non-negotiable, like Common Core, like the Park Assessment, like project-based learning. Those things are required that through the systemic network of these coaches will be embedded into every school through the coaching model. When you said that taking away the curriculum experts, the way I look at it is actually we're tripling the number of curriculum experts in the district by taking the model to 16, because there is no way that one math coordinator can affect change across every math teacher in this district. So now through the identification of 16 master coaches called lead coaches, that part of them will be numeracy coaches, some of them will be literacy coaches, some of them will be consulting teachers representing science and social studies. They'll be led by a director and of secondary and an elementary director of elementary instruction that have a wide range of curriculum base. And so that team will be a collective group that makes the decisions around professional development as a group instead of one person making those decisions. They're school-based. We're actually going to reimburse the schools for their use 2 days per month. We're employing them 1 month in the summer and the month of June, and then in July, as needed, we'll pay them to come in and deliver professional developments or attend meetings. So we think it's a more economical use of funds and also a better systemic approach to affect change on a wider scale.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I'm sorry, I still do. One is actually just around transparency. So regardless of where we stay, it looks like the budget is a process, and you know, presumably then we will be able to see then school by school allocations. I mean, is that widely available?
That's development work now with our budget, and I'll get Chris to answer that one too.
As I said, we have 17 schools that are currently working on their budgets, and so they're not finalized at this point. They're close, but they're not finalized. We'll be happy to share that information once they are finalized with you as far as what the allocations are for each school and break it down to a per pupil amount. Of course, it's very heavily driven by teacher salaries, which are currently heavily driven by experience and educational attainment. But we can also provide information relating to the schools that are not a part of the 17, what the different staffing formulas are and what the allocations would be for those schools. What we do is convert those to dollar amounts, and then, as I said earlier, provide that lump sum dollar amount to schools, to principals, for them to actually purchase different types of positions. But we'll be glad to share the information for the 17 once those are finalized, if you'd like to see those.
That'd be great. And I just realized that part of the reason I'm asking was for my other question, but also I'm very interested in equity, equitable funding across schools. You know, and I know that, for example, Denver, before they moved to student-based allocation, and New York City before they moved to it, I mean, they were all over the map. So you see a scatter plot of all the schools listed. I mean, it is all over the place in terms of per pupil spending. And so, you know, working in a district that, you know, has a disproportionate number of schools that are struggling on student achievement, and a lot of kids who come from low-income backgrounds, I feel very passionately about making sure that they get what they need to achieve at high levels. And so that's partly why I ask, is getting that level of funding, because I do want to ask us to sort of examine equity issues across the board so that none of our kids get left behind on that front. So that was partly why I asked.
And you'll probably see that here as well, and mainly because, as I said, the per pupil amount is going to be very heavily driven by the educational attainment and the experience level of the teachers in that school.
Exactly.
Because that's going to determine what their salary would be.
Exactly.
So if you have a large number of teachers that don't have a lot of experience, they may be very good, but don't have a lot of experience or educational attainment as far as different degrees, then the salary amount's going to be lower, and you multiply that by the number of teachers in a school and divide all of those expenditures by the number of students, the amount's going to be lower. based upon the current way we pay teachers.
And you're getting to the issue that I'm trying to get at, which is that is exactly how the inequity occurs. You know, so you have the more experienced teachers who end up in higher performing schools, and then kids in low-income communities who are left behind. They get sort of the short end of the stick on that at some level because of that. And so the idea is to create transparency in the budgeting process, so we know exactly, you know, what is occurring in each building and whether or not we feel good about the level of spending and experience that is happening, you know, that is occurring at the building level. But in this current process, you know, despite you know, it's hard, you know, when you don't have that transparency. It's hard to account for that kind of thing. But that's what I mean, why I'm so passionate about student-based allocation. I think it'll force us to examine all those details and ask ourselves whether we think, is that right, that all the most inexperienced, you know, teachers are in our lowest performing schools. That's, yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah, that's why.
Any other questions, comments? Thank you.
Next part of the director's report. This is budget update. I added this to the agenda because I felt like it was very important that we give you and the general public an update on where we are with the budget at this point in time. The mayor has made a recommendation, and Chris has some numbers up there. And the next step in this process is for Metro Council to have a budget hearing and to vote on approval. So let me, the first slide or two is intended to frame this to give you a perspective of where we are, and then we'll deal with some of the issues that we face. In the 2012-13 operating budget, that's this budget that we're in this year, was $720,400,000. Our proposed budget, the request made by the Board of Education was for $764,108, or a requested increase of $43,688,000. The mayor's recommended budget to Metro Council is $746,400, and so that's a recommended increase from Mayor Dean to our budget of $26 million. If we stop there, then it would, to the average person, it would seem like we're getting a great increase, and $26 million is a big increase. There are some challenges to our budget, though, that I think is very important to discuss. First, let me note the source of the funds. $12 million of the proposed increase is coming from the MNPS fund balance. $10 million is BEP revenue, state revenue, based on the growth and the modifications in the formula, and then additional local revenue for that $26 million increase amounts to approximately $4 million. The challenge is, and what the staff's been working on for several weeks now, is that with that increase, we still have to reduce approximately $18 million from the requested budget that you approved. We have some pressures in addition to the $18 million reduction in the proposed budget that I think are very important, and I'll be general in these. Let me say this: it's not our intention to talk about line items tonight. We're not ready to do that. It's premature. It's too early to do that because we don't know the final budget that's going to be approved by Metro Council. It could be a little more, it could be a little less, depending on what Metro Council does. So, and of course, the final line item approval of the budget belongs to the Board of Education. It's our responsibility to give you some recommendations, and we've got a number of those that we have been working on. But what we want to do is just give you a general update on where we are. Some of the factors impacting the 2013-14 operating budget are important, and they're very significant. A budget that's as large as ours, that is as labor intensive as our budget is, has inflation built into it that's very large. This year, our insurance and pension increases, the charges for the staff that we have is an aggregate of about almost $6.5 million increase. The governor recommended a 1.5% pay raise for teachers. That's a required amount of funds that we have to put into teacher pay raise. It doesn't have to be 1.5% per person. It can be used, we have greater flexibility to use that as we choose this year, but the total cost for that will be $4.1 million. The charter school growth figure, because we have a large growth in the number of charter school students next year due to 5 new schools and also increasing grades, and the existing charter schools is $14,800,000. And then required inflationary increases are expenses like power, fuel, other operating costs that really are necessary. We can't reduce those. And then one that we've talked about on several occasions is the fact that our federal budget is declining. Our revenue is expected to decline from the federal government a little over $10 million, about $10.5 million. And if you add those up, that's more than the increase that we're getting, and presents some of the real problems for us as we look at our budget. We, as I said, we as a staff have been working on this, and we've identified in general buckets about $18 million worth of cuts that we can make to the proposed budget. And this is a general breakdown of these. Reduced central office and support positions in the district, $4.09 million. Reduced teaching positions, $5.35 million. That'll cause class size to go up a little bit, but not much. Those two top categories constitute about 121 positions that we're looking at so far. And a number of those are central office staff reductions, either in administrative staff or support staff. The next one is a tough one, and that's to freeze the salary steps for all employees. The state is moving toward less of a reliance upon salary schedules, but in terms of our teaching staff, professional staff, this will be the first time that I'm aware of that we have ever frozen steps for experience in this school district. Is that correct, Chris? So far as you know?
As far as I know, yes.
And that's for all employees. That's for support staff and for our teaching staff. And then a reduction in the salary increase. We had originally in the budget a 1.5% increase of our locally paid salaries. That equates to a 1.12% in state dollars, and that 1.12% for certificated employees is actually the requirement of the state to the minimum requirement of the state. So we can save a little bit by going to that minimum pay raise there. That sort of gives you a picture of where we are. I think actually I'm not comfortable talking about line items. As I say, it's premature to do that because we don't know what the final number is. But we do have quite a bit of pressure on our budget this year. And even given the fact that we do have a significant increase proposed. Now, I'll let Chris answer the questions.
And before you get into it, let me just remind the board members that on May 28th at our work session, we will go into a deep dive on the budget. That's what that session is going to be for. So again, while we can't go into specific line items tonight, just keep that in mind. And so you may want to start thinking about questions that you have that would require us to go line items at that meeting. So any questions for Mr. Henson?
Make one other point about this. This process is not going to be over in the next week or two. This process really runs up until right at July 1st to finish the process. So we're not in crisis management in terms of taking action, and that's precisely why the staff's been working on this budget for some weeks now and looking at every line item and exploring what our possibilities are. So after Metro Council makes a recommendation, then we'll be able to finalize it specifically. Chris, any comments?
I'll just give just a brief timeline. As you know, the mayor presented his budget to the Metro Council on April 30th, which would have been 2 weeks ago. Since that time, the administrative staff has been working at going back through the budget, similar to the process we use when we put the budget together initially, where we go back through the budget account by account, looking at areas of potential reduction, having those discussions. And that's where we've come up basically with this grouping of 4 that you see here. And again, not that they're finalized, but this is the grouping that we've put together so far. And so the plan would be once we know what our number is, then Mr. Pinkston would call a Budget and Finance Committee meeting for the board to be presented with the recommendation from the administration regarding a revised budget that would equate to whatever is ultimately approved. And then, of course, it would be the board's prerogative to change that or to approve it, and that would be brought to you through that Budget and Finance Committee the same way that we brought the original budget proposal to you.
Any questions? Ms.
I just had a comment. Just as we're moving forward thinking about this, and I know we're going to get into more detail later, but something that we and the council, I think, need to be thinking about is that we are not making cuts to positions that are going to have a direct impact on student achievement. And I know it's a difficult choice to make, but I'm looking at some of these cuts, and we're looking at school psychologists and gifted program and special education. And so I think that's something to really think hard about, because those are positions that are going to have a really heavy impact on achievement, and that is our only and primary goal here. So.
Absolutely. $18 million is, even when we're looking at the increases that we've proposed, is really hard to find.
Any other comments or questions? We will await further information.
So Chris didn't present in the first part of the report tonight, but let me say that we have the best CFO in Tennessee.
Hear, hear.
And he'll help us through this, right, Chris?
No pressure, Mr. Henson, at all. No pressure at all.
So I have one other report that'll be shorter. I've asked Dr. Changus to just give you an update. We've completed our TCAP and end of course and all of that testing stuff. Our children have completed it anyway. Paul, I think you still have a few things to do. And we'd like for you to just give the board a quick update on how testing went this year.
Okay, and this will be very brief. Earlier, Mr. Carr mentioned the fact that park assessments are a couple years away, and I look forward to the electronic testing and online testing we'll be doing. We've been shuffling a lot of paper the last few weeks across the district. I'm going to talk just very briefly about the process because our schools did a great job. Fred also mentioned the data quality issues. We have to make sure that tens of thousands of documents are prepared in a way that we can send them on back to the state and make sure that we get credit for all of the hard work our students are doing. But we distribute test materials across the district We've been testing real heavily the last couple of weeks. Starting April 23rd through May 3rd, we tested over 94,000 students in different assessments. So very few students in the district were not impacted in some way with high stakes state mandated assessments. After we get the materials to schools, there's a process of training all of our staff members in terms of the test administration and particularly the test security policies. We're responsible for every test booklet and every answer sheet that's completed. And there's a pretty lengthy process in terms of the check-in back to our central office, our group testing office. Earlier you mentioned the work that our department does. We've primarily been warehousemen the last few weeks, and Mr. Carr has been a big part of that in helping schools as they return those materials. Right now we're in the midst with our schools of a lot of online processes to make sure the quality of data is complete. Everything comes from our Chancery Student Management System into the state system for the pre-coding of documents so that we have the right demographic information on all of our students. However, there's about a 2-month lag between the time that the state has to pull that data and the time we actually test. So there are a lot of hand-coded documents that are in there that have to be cleared up. Everything goes from the state system into the vendor, Pearson, for their pre-coding. Then it comes back to us, and that's what we've been involved with the last few days, doing all the data cleanup that opens up the system for a process where teachers go in and claim their students that they've been teaching this year for value-added purposes. We have a deadline of this Friday for all of our elementary schools, and for all of our TCAP and Stanford achievement testing linking to be done. So you're talking about probably about 60,000 kids or more that actually took these tests that we have at least one test that have to be claimed. And that's going to be used for the teacher effect reporting. So after all of that, we'll get the results back. Right now we have, these numbers are changing slightly daily as additional numbers are scanned, but these are the approximate final counts we expect to have. Over 32,000 students taking the TCAP or the ELSA, which is the English Linguistically Simplified Assessment, and the MOS, which is a Modified Academic Standards for our exceptional ed students who were below grade level. And there were another 2,600 that took the MOS. We actually had a smaller number that took the MOS this year than last year. The state now requires that if they're proficient in reading and math the prior year that on the MOS that they're encouraged strongly to take, from an accountability perspective, to take TCAP. This was the first year of the Stanford Achievement Test in K through 2. And that was a challenge. We know that particularly for those younger children taking a standardized test for the first time, it's a lot of testing. We had over 22,000 students taking the Stanford this spring. Those assessments are going to be used for teacher evaluation purposes. We tested back in the fall, but the state has now moved to a spring-to-spring value-added process for those students. So kindergarten student data would be the baseline for first grade teachers, first grade data the baseline for second grade teachers. End of course testing, we had over 37,000 testing, including a Chemistry 1 pilot for the first time. So in total, 94,000 and a little over 500 more students tested across all of this, across all these tests. I'll just say that the schools did a great job. We're anxious to get the results back. The first data that we will get back will be a preliminary roster with quick score data that will be used for determining grades for students who took the TCAP or end of course tests. They get a grade based on their performance on TCAP that counts as a percentage. For K-8 students, it's 20% of a semester grade from TCAP. For high school, it's 25% of that second semester. But we have a very short time to get all of that information into the system next week, and we anticipate that we won't have summary data till sometime this summer. Dr. Register mentioned the academic performance framework. we hope by the end of June or the 1st of July to have the data electronically that we can start incorporating that into those systems. But any questions about the testing process?
I do have one. On the preliminary roster grades that you'll receive, what's the expected time that you might receive those?
We for grades K through 8, our deadline to get everything the state needs completed electronically is Friday. We anticipate by Monday of next week we'll have those. Again, it's just going to be in a roster form, but it will allow them to enter grades. The high schools will probably take another day or two. They tested later, and their deadline is next Wednesday, but we're hopeful that we'll get things completed prior to that. I know that trying to get all the grade information in one or 2 days is a tremendous challenge for schools.
We have our first graduation on Thursday.
We're very aware of that. And I don't think there are many seniors who are going to be impacted, but there are some who are still taking these courses and need a passing grade. And I believe they do walk.
They do walk.
But
their diploma is held.
Yeah, the diploma is held until we get it.
Okay.
And again, I think we're talking about a very small number that would impact.
Great, good. Thank you.
Any other questions? I think you got off easy tonight, Dr. Changas.
I'm not going to complain about that. We'll be back in 2 weeks to talk about our strategic plan.
Yeah, I've got to say for Paul and his staff and Fred and a lot of other people who have really helped with that process, it has been quite a challenge this year because of very short timelines and turning around this data and getting it back to the state and back to Pearson. So I appreciate your work. Madam Chair, that concludes my report.
Fantastic. All right, we will move into committee reports. I am going to move my report to the board chairman's report. So Ms. Shepherd, we'll start with you, NSBA conference.
Okay, great. The NSBA conference, National School Board Association conference, was held Friday, April 12th through Monday, April 15th in San Diego, California. Chairwoman Mays and I both attended this great informative conference. On Friday, April 12th, I attended 2 different half-day workshops, the first on Common Core curriculum and the second on student and school safety. Both for fantastic workshops, but for different reasons. The Common Core one was so exciting, and it was geeky exciting. I mean, I really thoroughly enjoyed it. It was very informative. It was a packed 3 hours. It was just a great workshop. And then the safety one was very validating because we have already implemented several of the steps. We're already so far ahead of the game, perhaps because we have great leadership in that area. We're a larger school system than most, but that was very validating in that I know that we're already several steps ahead of several school systems across the country. The general session speaker on Friday was actress Gina Davis, who currently works for the Institute on Gender and Media, and she spoke to the subject of gender stereotyping of female and role models in the area of science, math, and technology. She stated that the United States is getting better in this area, but we are still not perfect in encouraging more females to enter these areas. She was very witty and presented very well. The general session speaker on Saturday was Dr. Neil Tyson, who's an astrophysicist and has worked everywhere from PBS to NASA. Dr. Tyson, in his own words, says he wants to reach out to all the people who never knew how much they love learning about space and science. He touched on every subject in and around the world of science, including his role in the reduction of the planet Pluto. He's very proud of that fact. And the presentation was delivered with wit and humor, and it was really a great session as well. On Saturday afternoon, Chairwoman Mays, Chief Academic Officer Jay Steele, Mark Hill from the Nashville Area Chamber of Commerce, and I presented a workshop around the academy model here in high schools in Metro Nashville Public Schools. The workshop was very well attended and very well received. The Q&A lasted until they finally kicked us out of the room and said, the next workshop is beginning, y'all have to leave. So we had to leave. But everybody was very excited in the work that's going on in Metro, and everybody did a great job. Ms. Mays and I attended many workshops during this time and we have brought home a lot of good ideas for our colleagues. Next year's NSBA convention will be held the first weekend of April, and it'll be in New Orleans, Louisiana, and my name is already on that list. this was a great convention. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Thank you for the opportunity for going to represent y'all. That concludes my report.
Governance. Ms. Froh?
We had a governance committee meeting on April 23rd, and we are beginning the process of working methodically through our policies and reviewing them and updating them. Other than some very inconsequential edits, we really took no action at that meeting. We do have another meeting planned for July 9th at 3:30, and we are also in the process, Ms. Hawkins and I are in the process of coming up with a time in June to have a meeting so that we can sort of speed the process along. But I think we've just sort of started the process of thinking about where we want to go with the policies and looking at them from a broader perspective. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, ma'am. And the board chairman's report tonight is going to be on Council of Urban Boards of Education, which was a part of the NSBA conference this year. Let me read this, because if I try to go off memory, it'll mess everything up. During this year's NSBA conference in San Diego, CUBE continued its year-long focus related to addressing the needs of young men of color. Included in this year's presentations were updates on the school board's perspective as it relates to addressing the needs of young men of color and the obstacles we're facing. Statistical data taken from the 2012 edition of the Urgency Now, the SHOT 50 State Report on Public Education and Black Males reports that only 52% of 52% of African American, 58% of Latino, and 54% of Native American students graduate from high school on time, compared to 78% of white students. From the U.S. Department of Education's Office of Civil Rights in 2012, for public schools serving the most African American and Latino students, only 65% offer Algebra 2, 40% offer physics, and only 29% offer calculus, which immediately disqualifies this population from entry into many states' flagship programs. Now that we have the information, the question now becomes, what do we do about it? Without adequate support, the life outcomes for young men of color, particularly African Americans, Latinos, and Native Americans, could involve academic failure, underemployment, and unemployment, and in too many cases, incarceration. School boards across the nation are being asked to partner with superintendents, district staff, and the community to create a vision for student learning that clearly articulates the belief that all students, including male students of color, are valuable and can achieve at the highest levels. School boards must continually monitor the district's progress in achieving the goal of preparing all students as engaged learners with the skills and knowledge necessary for academic and occupational success. As a means of achieving this vision, several speakers presented on topics that provided key information and eye-opening dialogue. Among them were Dr. Michael McAfee, Director of the Promise Neighborhoods Institute at Policy Link in Oakland, California, Dr. Bernard Taylor, Superintendent of the East Baton Rouge Parish School System, Dr. Juan Carlos Aruz, Founding Executive Director of E3 Education Excellence and Equity in San Rafael, California. Each of these speakers offered their own unique perspective of the disparities of young men of color. Some, like Dr. Aruz, offered an even more interesting presentation by taking the participants through his own personal life struggles by portraying himself as an elementary school student who transitions to a middle school student and then a high school student left to wonder how he would continue his education as an undocumented Latino youth. Dr. Aruz was not only able to obtain his high school diploma, but he went on to earn a BA in education, an MA in social work, and then later earned his doctorate in international and multicultural education. In A Call for Change, a preliminary blueprint to improve educational excellence and opportunity for African American males in public school, prepared by the Council of Great City Schools, several actions are cited that school boards can take to support and monitor academic excellence for male students of color. A part of assuring the accountability, school boards are challenged to take action by establishing goals for the district, develop policies that impact the culture and teaching and learning district-wide, and allocating resources for programs that promote the district's priorities and vision. Overall, the message was clear. A call to action was issued to school boards across the nation to work with stakeholders to develop and implement policies and programs that ensure that all students, particularly African American, Latino, Native American, and Pacific Islander and Southeast Asian, are provided the opportunity to receive a quality education regardless of race, ethnicity, gender, or socioeconomic background. I am very excited about the programming that CUBE is offering this year. As I said, I think prior to this, they started almost a year ago now, focusing on one issue at a time. This issue has become one that is of concern for a lot of school boards across the nation, so I think we need to make sure that we pay attention to what is going on in our district and we see what our young men of color are doing and how they're progressing academically, and do whatever we can to make sure that we get them to that next level. And that concludes my report from the CUBE conference. I will add the upcoming events for CUBE. The issue seminar is going to be in Seattle in July, and then the 46th annual CUBE conference and awards luncheon will be in San Antonio in October. And that again concludes my my report. I would like to, before we adjourn this meeting, offer my sincere thank you and appreciation to school board members. It has been a less than stellar year for us. We started out, September 11th was our first meeting as a newly formed board, and it has been one issue after another, and you guys have done well. You have maintained your professionalism. You have kept your head above the water, although sometimes we wonder how, and I commend you and I thank you for your dedication and your continued service as school board members, and it is very, very much appreciated. So thank you all for your service. And with that, Ms. Frogue.
And thank you, Cheryl. And there being no further business, this meeting is adjourned.